Hello everyone, welcome back to week 18 of our power rankings series. We got week 18 of the power rankings as we've seen some major shiftment in the top 10 after an interesting week, plus a new honorable mention to join the other four. We'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. We'd never be able to without you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. We're on the road to 500 subscribers, so if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button and don't forget to comment down in the comment section below discussing all that was discussed in today's video. And I'd also love to see you guys tune in on March 7th for our trade deadline video, our live stream that'll start around 11:30ish Mountain Time, so definitely check it out. I'll be talking about all the trades that happened at that point in time. But in today's video, we got our power ranking series. We're back with the power ranking series, first time in a couple of weeks. We're here, it's week 18 of the power ranking series, and we've seen some major shiftments. The honorable mentions stay mostly the same, but there's a new honorable mention to discuss here today. Plus, the top 10 has made some shiftments, although the top two teams are still going strong as the top two teams. So we'll get to all of the changes here in our power ranking series for this week. So at this point in time, we have 4 honorable mentions as we usually do. So the 4th honorable mention this week is the same as it was 2 weeks ago, and that is the Utah Hockey Club. I sort of gave teams who had already been in the power rankings last week precedent if they had decent weeks this week, and Utah was one of those teams. They had a decent week this week. They went 2-1-0. The Utah team started out the week with a narrow loss to Los Angeles before they were able to take down the Vancouver Canucks in an important game and narrowly defeated the Chicago Blackhawks. So very narrow wins against the Canucks and Hawks. We got 4 out of a possible 6 points. It's not the 6 out of 6 points I think Utah was hoping for, but they're only 3 points back of a playoff spot and they're back into the race. So I think they have to consider this a pretty successful week, which is why I had them as my 4th honorable mention. Like offensively, Schmalz, Gunther, Cooley, Keller, Krause, all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Jersey, Marino, Sergachev looking really good defensively, and in net, both Vejmelka and Ingram have been doing pretty good. So all in all, a pretty dang good week from Utah, getting 4 out of possible 6 points, only 3 back of a playoff spot. That's why I had them as my 4th honorable mention. My 3rd honorable mention this week is a new team, a team who enters the honorable mention for the first time in a while, and that's the Detroit Red Wings. Red Wings got 5 of a possible 6 points this week as they started out the week with a narrow overtime loss, blowing a late lead, losing to the Minnesota Wild before they blew another lead but recovered and beat the Anaheim Ducks in overtime, and then scored 3 in answer to beat the Minnesota Wild. So they beat the Minnesota Wild, beat the Anaheim Ducks in overtime, and lost the Minnesota Wild in overtime. So like I said, 5 out of possible 6 points. You want to see them hold on to that lead against Minnesota in that first game between those two teams this week, but still, I think you really take 5 out of possible 6 points as a major win for Detroit, who is now in the first wildcard position and only 4 back of the Tampa Bay Lightning for 3rd in the Atlantic Division. So Detroit's doing pretty good. Ever since Todd McLean's come in as the new head coach, they've been doing really good. And this team's thriving offensively. DeBrincat, Raymond, Casper, Larkin, Kane looking really good offensively. Defensively, Sherratt, Gustafsson, and Seider looking pretty good defensively. And in net, Lyon and Talbot doing pretty well in net. So all in all, a pretty solid week from the Red Wings. And that was my 3rd honorable mention this week. My 2nd honorable mention is the team who was 3rd honorable mention the last time we did power rankings, and that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Lightning continued on with their winning streak this week, going 2-0-0. Started out the week with a 4-1 victory over the Seattle Kraken, and then they beat the Edmonton Oilers 4-1. So a couple of 4-1 victories for the Tampa Bay Lightning. The one against Edmonton especially impressive. So a pretty solid week there, going 2-0-0 to extend their win and point streak and remain 3rd in the Atlantic right now. Like, they are looking lethal offensively. Kucherov, Hagel, Point, Cirelli, and Isamont are doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Hedman, Chernak, and Perbix looking pretty good defensively. And in net, both Vasilevsky and Johansson have been doing pretty good. So all in all, a solid week there from Tampa. That's why I had them as my 2nd honorable mention. And the 1st honorable mention this week is the Carolina Hurricanes. They fall out of my top 10. So they're one of the teams who do wind up dropping a little bit here. They did not have a win this past week. They went 0-2-0. Started out with a loss to the Leafs, fell behind 4-0 and couldn't come back, lost 6-3. And then they got shut out 4-0 by the Montreal Canadiens. So a couple of extremely bad losses to the Habs and the Maple Leafs, which kept them at 70 points. Now has New Jersey tied with them in the Metro Division, and has teams like Columbus and New York are not too far behind of them. So Carolina's definitely lost a couple of games recently, which is why I bumped them out of my top 10. But still, they're a decent team offensively. Carrier, Rantanen, Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis looking pretty good offensively. Defensively, Slavin, Burns, Chatfield doing pretty good defensively. And in net, both Anderson and Kochetkov have done all right. So a decent week this week from the Carolina Hurricanes, but they did not have a single win this week. That's why I bumped them out of my top 10. So those are my 4 honorable mentions for this week. And lastly here, going over to my top 10 power rankings. So the 10th spot this week is a team who was honorable mention the last time we did the power rankings, but because of Carolina falling out, I pushed them back in. And that is the New Jersey Devils. The Devils started out the week with a bad 4-2 loss to Dallas before obliterating the Nashville Predators 5-0. So a very impressive win there against Nashville. Dallas is a good team, so to see them lose to them 4-2 is not overly surprising. They got 2 out of possible 4 points. They went 500. It's not an overly bad week there from the Devils, but you want to see them get 4 out of possible 4 points. So still, it's a decent week for the Devils. Offensively, Hughes, Bratt, Platt, Meyer, Holla doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Hamilton, Fegan, Fowler, and Luke Hughes are doing pretty good defensively. And in net, Allen and Dawes have actually been doing some pretty good goaltending. So all in all, a decent week there from the Devils, going 1-1-0, and I have them as my 10th team in my power rankings. 9th team in my power rankings is the team who jumps up 1 spot from the last time we did the power rankings, and that is the Los Angeles Kings. Kings had a fantastic week this week, going 2-0-0. Started the week with, like we talked about, a narrow victory over Utah before they had a 4-goal third period and beat the Vegas Golden Knights. So 2 of a possible 2 wins, 4 of a possible 4 points. A perfect week, which is why I do bump them up from last time's power rankings. They're still one of the lower teams in the Western Conference, but still they're in a playoff spot. They're in 3rd in the Pacific. Point percentage wise, they're ahead of Edmonton now, so really good stuff there. But like, LA had a pretty good week this week offensively. Byfield, Fiala, Kopitar, Kempe, and Turcotte all had really good offensive weeks. Defensively, Doughty, Anderson, and Edmondson did all right defensively, and in net, Kemper and Riddick gave them some solid goaltending this week. So all in all, a pretty decent week there from the Kings. That's why I had them as my 9th team in my power rankings. 8th team in my power rankings this week is the Edmonton Oilers. They had an atrocious week, going 0-3-0, which is why I bumped them down from 3rd in my power rankings the last time we did power rankings. They had an embarrassing loss, giving up 5 of the last 6 goals, losing 6-3 to Philadelphia. Then they gave up a hat-trick to Ovechkin and lost to them 7-3. And then, like we just talked about, they lost to Tampa 4-1. So gave up 4 goals in each of their last few games, which is not overly good, not a recipe for success. So that's why I bumped the Oilers down a whole bunch. But they're still one of the top teams in the league, one of the top teams in the Pacific Division, which is why I'm only putting them down to 8th. Like I said, offensively, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, Skinner, Podkolzin doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Bouchard, Ekholm, and Stetcher doing pretty good defensively. And in net, both Pickard and Skinner have given them some decent goaltending, although it could definitely be a lot better than it was this past week. So all in all, a pretty bad week from Edmonton, going 0-3-0, and that's why I had them as 8th in my power rankings. 7th in my power rankings this week is the Minnesota Wild. They went 1-1-0, and as we just talked about, they played both games against Detroit. They beat the Detroit Red Wings in a comeback fashion, overtime 4-3, before they lost to them 3-2 when they had a lead. So came from behind to get the win and had a lead but blew it and wound up losing in regulation. So 1-1-0 against Detroit, not overly bad for Minnesota. Like, you definitely want to see them hold on to that lead against Detroit and go 2-0 against them this past week, but still they had a decent week. I can't really hold it against them. They're still one of the top teams in the Western Conference, and they're clicking on a lot of cylinders offensively. Johansson, Zuccarello, Ogren, Hartman, and Rossi have been doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Faber, Spurgeon, and Bogosian have been doing pretty good defensively. And in net, Gustafsson and Fleury continue to give them some pretty good goaltending. So all in all, a pretty good week for Minnesota. That's why I had them as my 7th team in my power rankings. 6th team in my power rankings this week is the Florida Panthers. Another team this week who was 500, going 1-1-0. Started out the week with a narrow loss to Seattle 2-1. Before, just a little while ago, they beat the Nashville Predators 4-1. So had had a narrow loss to Seattle, had a pretty impressive win over Nashville, so I gotta say that it had a pretty decent week. There was a point in that Seattle game too where they had a lead before it was called back to the goaltender interference, so like you said, you really want to see him win against Seattle, but I think 2 out possible, 4 points, 1 out possible, 2 wins is not overly bad, and they're still a pretty good team. Offensively, Louis Ryan, Barkov, Reinhardt, Bennett, Lundell doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Forsling, Ekblad, and Mikkola doing pretty good defensively in the net. Bobrovsky and Knight continue to do pretty dang good in net. So all in all, a solid week there from Florida as they occupy the 6th spot in my power rankings. The 5th spot in my power rankings this week is the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team who was undefeated, going 3-0-0. I think they were one of, if not the only team, who went 3-0-0 last week. The Toronto Maple Leafs started out the week with, like we talked about, a 6-3 victory over Carolina. Then they were able to score 3 unanswered goals and beat Chicago before they were able to overcome a 3-0 deficit and beat the Boston Bruins 5-4 in overtime. So a pretty good week there from Toronto. They're still the top team in the Atlantic Division, one of the top teams in the NHL. That's why I bumped them up from where I had them last time we did the power rankings. A really good week. I mean, wins over Carolina and Boston are very impressive, especially in the fact they were down 3-0 to Boston. So, like, offensively, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, McMahon, Kampf looking pretty good offensively. Defensively, O'Reilly, McCabe, and Tanev doing pretty good defensively in the net. Both Woll and Stolarz are giving them some pretty dang solid goaltending. So all in all, pretty good week there from the Leafs, going 3-0-0. I had them as my 5th team in my power rankings. The 4th team in my power rankings this week is the Vegas Golden Knights, another team who went 1-1-0. They started out the week with a narrow victory over the Vancouver Canucks before, like we talked about, a very bad loss to Los Angeles. So that win, coupled with those Oilers loss, does have that team in Vegas, the top team in the Pacific Division. So that's why I keep them as my 4th team in my power rankings. Still a very fantastic team, even though you want to see them beat LA and hold on to the lead they had after 2 periods. It's still a decent week there from the Vegas Golden Knights, which is why I do have them as 4th in my power rankings. Like offensively, Carlson, Hurdle, Eichel, Olofsson, Holtz doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Hannafin, Pietrangelo, Theodore doing pretty good defensively in the net. Hill and Samsonov have given them some pretty decent goaltending. So all in all, solid week there from the Golden Knights. That's why I have them as my 4th team in my power rankings. 3rd team in my power rankings this week is the Dallas Stars. Stars are one of the few teams in the power rankings this week who had a winning record, going 2-1-0. They started out the week with a very good victory, like we talked about, over New Jersey 4-2. Then they were able to take down narrowly the New York Islanders 4-3 before they had an embarrassing 6-4 loss to Columbus. So definitely want to tighten up defensively and not be giving up 6 goals a game, but still 4 goals in each of the games they had this week. Offense that's clicking on all cylinders. Like Dallas is still 2nd in the Central Division. I think they're like 3rd or 4th in the league points wise. So all in all, pretty solid week there from Dallas. Like offensively, Stankoven, Johnston, Duchesne, Granlund, Hintz doing pretty good offensively. Defensively, Ceci, Dumba, Liabushkin doing pretty good defensively in the net. Both Onger and the Smith are doing pretty good in net. So all in all, Dallas is still one of the top teams in the NHL, which is why I have them as my 3rd team in my power rankings. 2nd team in my power rankings for what's I think like the 3rd or 4th week in a row is the Washington Capitals. Another pretty dang good week this week. Kept on with their point streak coming out of the Four Nations break by beating the Pittsburgh Penguins 8-3, and then the Edmonton Oilers 7-3 on back-to-back nights before they wound up losing narrowly 3-1 to the Calgary Flames. So you don't want to be giving up 3 goals in every game they play this week, but still, they scored a combined 16 goals in 3 games. Like, that offense is lethal. They're still the best team in the Eastern Conference, the 2nd best team in the NHL, and they're still clicking on all cylinders offensively. Ovechkin, Strome, Mangiapane, Dubois, Protas looking pretty dang good offensively. Defensively, Chikrin, Sandin, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk doing pretty good defensively in the net. Even though they didn't have an overly great week this week, Lindgren and Thompson continue to be 2 of the best goaltenders in the NHL. So all in all, a pretty good week from Washington, getting 4 out of a possible 6 points, 2 of a possible 3 wins, and that's why I'm putting them as the 2nd team in my power rankings again. And lastly, either for the 3rd or 4th straight week, the number 1 team in my power rankings is the Winnipeg Jets. They're not going to get bumped this week. They started out the week this week going 2-0-0 to extend their franchise-setting winning streak to 10 games. They started out the week with a 4-3 shootout come-from-behind victory over St. Louis, and then they had a 2-1 overtime come-from-behind victory over the San Jose Sharks. They don't want to see them be giving up points to San Jose and St. Louis in embarrassing fashion where they should have easily won those games, but still, they're on a 10-game winning streak, which is franchise-setting. They're the only team to have 40-plus wins. Like, this team is really clicking on all cylinders. They're the best team in the league, the best team in the Western Conference, have a massive lead for top spot in the Central Division. Like, offensively, this team is clicking with Scheifele, Connor, Ehlers, Velarde, Nemesnikov, all looking really good offensively. Defensively, Pionk, DeMello, Stanley doing pretty dang good defensively, and Annette, Hellebuck, and Comrie continue to give them fantastic goaltending performances. So all in all, another really fantastic week from the Jets, which is why, yet again, they are the #1 team in my power rankings. So definitely, that's my power rankings for this current point in time for Week 18. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of this. Just to mention, there was only one team that I swapped from last week to this week in the power rankings that I did take out and put in. I took out the Vancouver Canucks, who were a second honorable mention in our last power rankings video, and I put in the Detroit Red Wings, who are now a third honorable mention in the power rankings. So that's the only movement I made in the power rankings for taking people out or people in. But just to recap, here's my top 10 power rankings as it sits right now. At the 10th spot, we have the New Jersey Devils. The 9th spot is the Los Angeles Kings. The 8th spot is the Edmonton Oilers. 7th spot is the Minnesota Wild. 6th spot is the Florida Panthers. 5th spot is the Toronto Maple Leafs. 4th spot is the Vegas Golden Knights. 3rd spot is the Dallas Stars. 2nd spot's the Washington Capitals. And for the 3rd straight week, top team in my power rankings is the Winnipeg Jets. So definitely, that's my power rankings for Week 18 of the Power Rankings series. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. Did they put anyone too high? They put anyone too low? And who would you have in your power rankings at this point in time? Definitely hear your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. We're going to like this video. If you're liking, subscribe below. Thank you all for your support. Would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below discussing all that was discussed in today's video. I also have a blog to make news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. There's a link to that down in the description below. And can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.